Alright, so before we get started, I may as well address the elephant in the room. Yes, this is not a 7-second summary. The simple reason as to why there is no 7-second summary this week is that I was really busy this weekend and didn't have much time to watch the games. I watched at least Overwatch this week as I have any week so far this season. Therefore, I don't feel like I've seen enough to really comment on every team. But if you want my quick hits, NYXL and Gladiators are both looking really good. The Mayhem might want to just swap their main team with their academy teams. Good on the Valiant for snapping their losing streak. We won't see any Dragons level futility this season, which is nice. The Reign are yikes, and Corey from the Justice proved that he is Overwatch League level, just maybe not on Zarya. I apologize to anyone who was looking forward to a 7-second summary this week, but it just couldn't happen based on how much I ended up watching. But I think the subject of this video is pretty interesting, and I hope you think the same. So now, for something different. On Saturday, April 13th, the Vancouver Titans and the Houston Outlaws met for a match that wasn't expected to be anything more than a Vancouver blowout. The Titans had yet to lose a match on the Overwatch League stage and have come through in the face of adversity again and again when teams like the Charge, the Hunters, and the Shock have tested them. Meanwhile, the Outlaws were received by most to be lucky to still be hanging around even in wins and losses up to this point. Vancouver was gonna speedrun this match, get the 4-0, and that'll be it. Easy peasy, right? Well, that's not quite what ended up happening. On the Busan's mecha base, the Outlaws came out with an exciting triple DPS comp, with Linkser on Widow, Dante on Sombra, and Arhan making his season debut on Tracer, while the Titans came out on their Ana Goats composition that they have been running a lot this stage. And even though the Titans looked to be in control for the first part of this map, the Outlaws took it thanks to some good play from all three of their DPS players. Sanctuary is where it got really crazy though, as the Outlaws decided to put Linkser on Soldier and Arhan on Torb, and it worked incredibly. Linkser just popped off on Soldier for this map like I have not seen anyone pop off on Soldier that hard, and more importantly, it felt like the Titans didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to play against such an out-of-left-field comp. They were making mistakes. Bumper was jumping in on low health and getting picked off immediately. Dante was getting free hacks and EMPs. The Outlaws ended up taking Busan, a map that the Titans hadn't lost yet up to this point, in a dominating fashion. And all of a sudden, a massive upset was potentially on our hands. The Outlaws seemed to have the Titans frazzled and confused, and all of the momentum was in their favor. Their DPS players, Linkser specifically, were popping off, Bumper had already made a few key mistakes, all the pieces were falling into place. The Outlaws would go on to play almost exclusively Goats for the rest of the series against the best Goats team in the world. They would lose 1-3. Now, the obvious thing for a fan of the game to say is, why did the Outlaws stop running DPS comps? It was working. And that is what was said. A lot. This prompted some members of the Outlaws to defend their decisions, and, well, stuff happened, but we're not here to talk about the tweets that were sent that day and the next day. I genuinely think that there's an interesting discussion to be had here, and that's what I'm going to go into today. Now, to temper your expectations, I'm not going to give you a definite yes or no as to if the Outlaws made the right decision, as I think there are arguments from both sides that are valid. Instead, I'm going to go over the arguments for the Outlaws playing a Goats comp, and then the arguments for them playing a DPS-centric comp, and then hopefully by the end you will be informed enough on both sides to make your own opinion. With that out of the way, let's get into it. One of the first things to note about the Outlaws is that this is a team that doesn't like to experiment with the meta that much. This is a team that tries their best to play the meta instead of to their specific strengths. This isn't a knock against the team, as most teams not named Chengdu are doing this, but the point is that the Outlaws can't be expected to go outside of the meta much, nor can we expect them to run many outlandish strategies if they haven't heavily practiced it beforehand. Triple DPS comp on mecha base is a fairly common strategy, and it's something that Houston has played on Busan before, so exciting but not out of the ordinary. Well, what about Soldier Torb? There's no way we've seen that before on Busan. And you'd be right, I haven't seen that before in Overwatch League. But given the history of this team, it is terribly out of line. You see, there are exceptions to the rule I said before, and one of the few times that the Outlaws deviated in Season 1 was with Torb. Jake was one of the few people in Overwatch League that took him out multiple times for payload-oriented points. This is a team that has experimented with Torb before, and therefore I'm not super surprised to see that they're still doing that. These are comps that the Outlaws likely practiced for a long time, and just like they practiced GOATs on the other maps. Then, of course, you look at maps for the rest of the series, Paris, Eichenwald, and Rialto, which are all maps that heavily reward GOATs play. Now, the meta isn't entirely set on Paris. I've seen a lot of stuff get run, and the open skies of Eichenwald A give the attacking team a lot of flexibility, but other than that, this is a very tank-heavy set of maps. Something that is just a sad truth in Overwatch is that there are a good amount of maps and points in this game where GOATs is objectively the best composition to run, and running anything else is practically giving up the map. All 3 of the remaining maps at least had points like that. So, these maps were for it, they were practicing for it, why not play GOATs? Sure, you could say it's a Hail Mary play to play DPS comps or something like that, but I feel like last-minute changes to plans that have been in motion for months, it's pretty uncommon. And there is one more thing that I don't really want to bring up because I think that some players may take offense to it, but it just makes too much sense to me. As of right now, it appears that the meta is still going to be a majority GOATs. There might be more variety than before, but we'll likely still play GOATs more than anything else. Therefore, if you want to learn what you're doing wrong with GOATs, then why not play GOATs against the best GOATs team in the league? Now, the team has had multiple maps of great footage against a great team where they can analyze, see what they did wrong, and then improve. Not every team has that, at least not in an official setting. I don't know who Vancouver is scrimming. I don't love this theory because it suggests that the Outlaws played a strategy that they knew they would lose with and played it anyways, and that just doesn't line up with the fiercely competitive personalities in Overwatch League, but it has enough merit that it's worth mentioning. Now, the most obvious and influential argument for DPS comps is, well, it was working. The Titans had no idea what to do and practically rolled over on Busan Sanctuary. Look, Rialto is a GOATs map. You can't get around that. All the 90-degree turns just make it optimal for short-range tank and support play. But if you had used more DPS comps in places that it could be viable in, like possibly Paris or Eichenwald A, you may not have found yourself in such a bad position. It could be argued that by going back to GOATs and allowing the Titans to get back into their comfort zone, that may have lost them the game. With momentum on your side, which coupled with a well-managed ult economy, can be much more of a problem than you'd think, the Outlaws could have run away with this. There's also the argument that this team is just plain not good at GOATs. I definitely don't blame the Outlaws for looking uncomfortable on GOATs, it's outside of the comfort zones of most of their players, but the constant swapping of roles for seemingly no reason is telling to me. We've seen both Dante and Linkster in playing Zarya, we've seen Linkster, Jake, and now Arhan coming in to play Brig, we've seen the team try out Spree on D.Va instead of Coolmat. Like, it's fun to try new things, but in a meta as teamwork reliant as GOATs is, the Outlaws really aren't letting a full group of 6 get too comfortable with each other to build up the synergies that are required to play GOATs at a high level. And I know I'm just spitballing here, I obviously don't know what's going on in the Houston Outlaws organization, but I don't think they're stupid. I think they totally understand this, and therefore the only reason to make this many changes so fast is if something isn't working. When you think of Dante, you don't think Zarya, you think Sombra. Linkster isn't Brig or Zarya, he's Widow. You think of the Jake Rat or the Arhan Lol Genji blades, but there's a reason why Arhan played Genji so much, even with his blades not being as great. These are the heroes that these players made their names on, and their biggest strengths. If you're having trouble playing to the meta, why not play to your strengths instead? So, there you go. There are the reasons that I can think of for and against the Outlaws' decisions to play GOATs. Now that you've heard both sides, what do you think? If you think the Outlaws should have played DPS comps, then leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And if you think they made the right choice for running GOATs, then, do the same thing? Okay, but seriously, let me know in the comments. I love to hear your opinions on this sort of stuff, and honestly, if you like this video, then leave a like and subscribe. I make Overwatch League videos once a week, and would be super happy if you took just a little bit of time out of your week to watch them. And also, before I go, I want to say to everyone at the Houston Outlaws organization, if anyone happens to end up watching this video, just know that I have a huge amount of respect for anyone in Overwatch League for any reason. I love people who are in there chasing their dreams, and I don't mean this video to be of any disrespect to any of you. If anything that I stated in this video was incorrect, after all, it was me just theory crafting, I obviously don't know what's going on inside the organization, then feel free to let me know and I'll make a pinned comment with the corrections if you would like me to do so. Thank you all so much, and until next time, that's all from me. Don't get tilted.